All right. Question 7 here. Accounting for overheads. All right. Yes. Bridge Tech Limited manufactures electronic gadgets during the month of March 2026. The following overheads costs were incurred. Okay, so the overhead type we've got rent, electricity, depreciation, indirect wages, factory maintenance, insurance. Okay. The company produces 5,000 units during the month. Management wants to allocate overhead costs to units using a predetermined overhead rate based on direct labor hours. The total direct labor hours worked during March were 2,500 hours. Okay. So, A, prepare an overhead analysis sheet. So, colleagues, as I said, in this question, there's only one department. There are no multiple departments, and there's no information that we need to apportion or allocate these overheads. So, your overhead analysis sheet will look like this, colleagues. Okay, rent, electricity, depreciation, indirect wages, factory maintenance, insurance, and you get your total overheads. You just add all of them. Okay, 1,000. Uh huh. Yes. Yes. Yes, Mr. Casson. Okay. Because there's no information for other departments and for apportionment. Unless we saw there, if you saw the floor area, electricity, those that information there, and you saw other departments, then you would start apportioning there. But that information is not there. Okay, Mr. Kaswan? Yes. Yes, Mr. Trumbull. Mr. Trumbull will assume the floor area, depreciation, machine value. And that apportioning. Yes, colleagues. So that this is basically the analysis sheet, colleagues. Okay, there is no apportionment happening here. You just list the overheads, all right, and just total them up. So the total overheads are 12,500. Are there any questions, colleagues? That's why I was saying that you should pray. This one is the one that counts. Yes, that's what I'm saying. That is a pastor. Okay, so we need to get the predetermined overhead rate, which is the overhead absorption rate. Okay. Colleagues, what is the overhead absorption rate in simple words? What is the overhead absorption rate in simple words or the predetermined overhead rate? Or what and what is its purpose? And it's good, Mr. Kasono, you said that you even looked at that question. So in that question, you also tabulated the overhead absorption rate. and you should have heard what it is. Who was in that class, Mr. Kasono, so I can ask? Madam Luendo, what is the overhead absorption rate? Okay. Who else was there? Mr. Twambo, what is the overhead absorption rate? Uh, yes. But now, can you put it in layman's terms for the masses? The overhead cost per unit. No, just say overhead cost per unit. Okay. Yes, yes. If you remember that example for shawarmas, where I said if you want to include the overheads in the cost of the shawarma, you would do it like this here. First, tabulate the total overheads. Then you say, okay, these overheads, I'm going to absorb them using the labor hours that I used to produce shawarmas. Okay. Now, this company, okay, they've told us we're absorbing using direct labor hours. Okay. So the overhead absorption rate, total overheads over total direct labor hours. The reason why we're doing this is so that we can get the full cost per unit. Okay, because the direct materials cost per unit and the direct labor cost per unit, you'll be able to tabulate it. Okay, but the overheads, the rent that you pay, the insurance that you pay for the shawarma stand, let's say this is for this shawarma stand here. Okay, the depreciation of the shawarma machine. Okay, yes. So the total overheads 12,500. The labor hours 2,500. Huh? Yes, 2,500. So 12,500 divided by 25, well, $5 per direct labor hour. Meaning for every direct labor hour works, the company charges $5 of overheads to production. Yeah. Credit. Yes. But are you okay with what has happened here? Yes. So we can also apply this in our daily lives, okay? When you're budgeting for the house, what are the overhead costs for the house? Okay. You can absorb them on the the hours used for leisure. You say, okay, I'll absorb the overheads of the house, the number of hours I spend on leisure. So that in your budget, okay, for the house, you can include overheads. Would we agree with that, Madam Kathy? Would you agree with that? All right. Yes. But if you're doing small businesses at home, okay, if you make samosas, cakes, yes, don't forget to include the overhead costs in each samosa or each cake you produce. Don't just charge. No, I see people charging 500 per cake, so I start making 500. No. Okay. Yes. You can use, yes, you can use labor hours. You can also use number of scones produced. You can absorb them on number of scones produced. Mm, it's up to you to choose. Okay. Yeah, so you add, okay, the rent for the house is this, electricity is this, depreciation with home materials. I don't think depreciation, but probably you have very few overheads if you're producing something at home. So that's probably rent, electricity, if you maybe even add water bills. Yes, maybe those three. Then over number of scones produced, and then you find if you're producing samosas, you stop selling them at 5 kwacha per samosa because when you include the overheads, you might need to sell them now at 13 kwacha per samosa. Wouldn't we agree, colleagues? Madam Alinawe, I hear you bake cakes. If you include the overheads, yes. Madam Chewe, would you agree with that? Okay, so calculate the overhead applied to the production. Okay, so we just want to find out, okay, now what's the total overhead cost that we're incurring for that month? Okay, so remember, the overhead equals the overhead absorption rate times the level of activity. Okay, if you want to find out now, okay, what's the overhead charge? It's the overhead absorption rate multiplied by the level of activity. Yes. And we come back to the same 12,500 because we have our overhead rate, $5 per labor hour. The number of labor hours worked, 2,500 labor hours. So the overhead, 12,500. Yes. Any questions? Yes. So that's how you find the overhead that you need to charge. Once you've got that overhead absorption rate, you need to calculate it. Yeah, once you've calculated it, then you'll be multiplying by the level of activity. So if your overhead absorption rate is, let's say, 5 kwacha per samosa, you'll be multiplying by the number of samosas produced so that you know, okay, what is my overhead charge incurred for the month. Okay, but for explain the purpose of using an overhead analysis sheet in cost accounting, colleagues, this theory part, yes. What